Hello and welcome along to the On the Whistle podcast. I'm your host, Zayn Nabbi. Joining me today is the one and only Caleb Mutombwa, Zimbabwean journalist, African expert, lover of rugby, men and the women's game. Caleb, so good to be here as we review the weekend that was and look forward to a fantastic set of games in the Rugby Championship. We'll also hit the mailbag. We'll want to hear your comments. For those of you who engaged, you would have known that I predicted a Springbok win in Eden Park. I said the streak would end, the Boks would win. It would be a very tightly contested game, which it was. But listen, you give 14 points to the All Blacks. You get a referee that doesn't call the big moments in the last 20. And, you have a All Black team that plays well, a Springbok team that plays badly. This is going to be the result. Caleb, you've heard my brief snapshot. What were your takeaways from the game that many are saying was the rugby event of the year thus far?
Well, you summed it up a bit there when you talk about giving 14 points to the All Blacks. You are in trouble already. I don't think the Springbok lost again, as always. I don't think the referee, albeit that we've seen some challenges from that particular referee. As you see, I refuse to name referees because I think they are protected species and they deserve our protection as people involved in the media and all the rest of that. I thought he didn't call the big moments. That's fine. But I also think some of those big moments, any referee might have let that go, apart from some of the big guns we've seen in the world. So apart from a Nigel Owens, a Wayne Barnes, and maybe a Mark Lawrence back in the day, I don't think those big moments gets called. Um, yeah, I think the 2019 brigade don't look like they can be excellent for another 2 years. Changes in approach and selection needs to happen, and that has always been my worry after us joining the URC. As some of our players are playing, some of the Springboks players, I must say, are playing all year round, um, and that was obvious. Started very slow, like absolutely sluggish. 14 points, the All Blacks. They defended like their lives depended on it. I felt like it was a reversal of the World Cup final with the Springboks led, and then the All Blacks had to chase. The Springboks had to chase this game, and there was a chance of chasing. And with a couple of things we need to sort out. I think we need to sort out our back three outside of the usual Kirtley Arendse, Cheslin Colby, and at the time Willie Leroux or Damien Willemse. I thought we need to sort out what's happening in the locks. For the next, they need to sort out what's happening in the last next 2 years. I also thought the Springboks haven't gotten an answer to number 8 outside of Jasper Visa and Dwayne Vermeulen, who retired after the 2023 World Cup. They've done the Kwagga Smith thing.
Mm-hmm.
They've done the Sia Kolisi thing. And also I thought they left a number 8 at home. I thought it's a time to get Evan Roos a crack, but that didn't happen. But it was a good
Why do you
game.
think? Why do you think he doesn't fit Rassie's squad? I mean, there's been lots of sort of conspiracy theories. He's excellent at club level, but why do you think he's not got the opportunities in the Test match arena? What could be holding back his selection there?
Well, I've been a fan of Zimbabwean football for a while, and this will be for a few niche people. They'll remember a player called Francis Chandida, excellent for Dynamos in Harare for a long time, but could not hack it in the national team. I don't think Evan Roos is quite that. I just think he hasn't sorted out his battle stats. Rassi and them would want you to not get into 50 battles and win 49. They want you to get into
Mm.
130 battles and win 70 of them because they want you to get into as many battles as you can. I don't think he's the kind of player that gets into as many battles as they would like on what I would call the nitty gritties, hard yards, unseen donkey work, the things that people don't realize that Sia Kolisi does most of the time. He was excellent on the weekend, by the way, because they
Agree.
think he's a number 8 that's supposed to be carrying hard and doing all the running games, which he doesn't do. So that's what I really thought about Evan Roos. But I think there's a chance to give Cobus Visa a start. But Jasper is back now. He does not got any reverse gear. Jasper goes forward with the ball all the time. Many will remember his time at Leicester Tigers. He's the reason why Freddie Burns scores that the drop goal that won the Premiership in 2022. He's an ability to carry and bring people towards him, but also not only that, he picks out jackal threat. So if Jasper Visa had that carry, he would have gone in for Adi Savia to make the tackle so that there isn't any jackal threat. He did it for Leicester Tigers in that final where he carried right straight through into Itoje because he knew that Itoje is the jackal threat. So if he carries into Itoje, then that jackal threat goes away. Dwayne Vermeulen also had the same nuances. It's those little nuances that somebody who's not a carry expert in that field probably doesn't understand what they need to do as opposed to a specialist number 8 who's done it for a while. I think the referee had an impact on both sides of the game. I thought if you're expecting big moments to be called in the last 15 minutes, you've already lost the game. You should, if you're playing against an All Blacks, an Ireland, don't leave it at that because referees are never going to be involved in deciding the game unless they feel it's clearly obvious. Where the Adi Savia turnover was obvious, but you could argue things that happened before that breakdown might not be as obvious. And I can tell you that no referee is going to call that late into the game. Nobody.
Why? Give the fan out there like me who sits on the couch an insight into why the referee. For you, it's easy to understand that because you have the insight, right, Caleb? But why would the man you did not name, but the man who Victor Matfield named, being what was his name? I even forgot his name. Carl Dixon, the Englishman. Why is it that he wouldn't give that or any other referee? Why do you believe that?
Genuinely so. I think the public need to understand how difficult it is to be in their position. Right? They have to make 292 decisions in an elite rugby game, and some of them are non-decisions. That's number one. But number two, essentially, a referee does not want to get involved in deciding the match. They want the players to decide the match for themselves. So if you're in that decision, if you haven't been calling it, you're probably not going to call it. You want it to sort itself out. You want a knock-on to happen. You want not because you're trying to anything, but it's just a natural sense of it. We do it in our own lives, right? If we don't have to make decisions, we don't have to make decisions. People procrastinate about a lot of things, just human psychology, the path of least resistance. But I genuinely think so that it's a little bit hard on somebody to make a decision that early on, something that could a lot happen on those breakdowns. I think the general refereeing of the breakdown itself could have been better. I think we need to separate the two issues. I'm not saying.
So if I can come in quickly.
Yeah.
Like we know in rugby, Caleb, and I think every fan will accept, you have to manage the game rather than blowing every infringement because their players off their field, their players are slipping offside. There's so many things going on, right? So it's a management process. Rugby refereeing is more management. I think I would accept that. You would accept that. But what becomes difficult to accept is when there's inconsistencies in the management.
Yeah, I can see that.
And in the interpretation.
I can see why people would say that, but I also always notice that fans are always biased. You will never see
100%.
how well
100%.
the Boks were jeopardized.
Let me come in quickly here because we mustn't make it a Carl Dixon podcast. But you look back at the Rugby World Cup final in 2023, and you look at Sam Cane's sending off versus Siya Kolisi's yellow card.
Yeah.
And in my mind, if Siya got red carded, that would have been a fair call. Now, that might not necessarily be the referee. That may be coming from the bunker, right? But what I'm trying to say is, like, I would have been, if Siya had been sent off, I would have been very comfortable with that based on what had happened earlier. And I don't think the mitigating reasons given in that final, I don't think I necessarily agree with them. So what I'm saying is, like, I've seen in a World Cup final, the biggest game that any player could play in, an inconsistency that basically
was that an inconsistency, if I may ask? So if
I mean, to the naked eye, if you can see the mitigating circumstances there versus
I wish
Sam Cane's situation versus Siya's. I mean, it's I mean, that is ridiculously close to see those things.
So I think if I would use my finger, Sam Cane was like that. Okay, Siya Kolisi was like that. Very marginal. Like I said, if there was a call that the referee in that, we don't want to talk 2023, if there was a call Wayne Bond struggled with, is the knock on. I think the All Blacks try that they always complain with. I don't think they got anything else particularly wrong in that final. But I'll
What
remind
was wrong with the knock on?
there was one that led up to I think it led up to a All Blacks try that they called back,
Yes,
and I thought they could have let it go by playing advantage.
understood.
You're right.
Understood.
And then if I were to remind Springbok fans, they need to tell me the difference between what happened to Kwaka Smith in the Super Rugby final in 2017 versus what Cheslin Colby did at, is it the Aviva?
Hmm.
Was it the Aviva 2022, or also what he did in the second test in the British and Irish Lions, where he went and played somebody in the air and he didn't get red carded? I think we need to be always viewing things differently. I thought the referee had an influence in the game, but I don't think the referee's influence decided who won or who lost the game.
No, I think, look, Oxenchair goes over the line. There's some wonderful defending that prevents the ball from being scored. The Springboks themselves were sloppy, right? Like, um, you look at those first two tries, they were Springbok, as much as they were All Black attacking prowess, there were Springbok errors that led to that came from that
Yeah,
pressure.
and I
And,
think
Oxenchair scores and Polly kicks the penalty that he missed. It's a 10-point swing, right?
nobody's
So
talking
I
about
get
that.
that.
Nobody's talking about
No, but I was on my sofa.
yeah.
But that's what sort of gives me, if we transition to the weekend, me going, right, I think he'll keep the core of this team and he will be really inspired by what we saw with the bomb squad that came on. And it wasn't traditional bomb squad in that they all came on at the same time. They were sort of put in at different times of the game and sort of almost bled in. And I thought the bench was outstanding. I mean, it was outstanding. And
Yeah,
then I saw the team that dropped. And listen, I was like, Polly, start with Polly, and then let's maybe see Sacha and him go together for a period, or start with Sacha and go with Polly. And he went and ripped the script. And, I'm sure everyone's seen it, but Caleb, I'm just going to go through the backs. You got Fussy at fullback. No qualms with me. I didn't think that Villy was great. You got Colby and Hooker as the wings. And then Moody and Willems as the centers. I mean, those are bolters for me, right? And then you got Feinberg-Mngomezulu and Reinach as the halfbacks. I mean, that back line is insane. And I'm trying to sit here and I go through these two thoughts and I want to get yours, where I'm like, he's doing what Caleb said 2 podcasts ago. He's putting the youngsters in there to fire shots and get experience and see what they can do. Or B, somehow Rassie's conceded we're going to lose in Wellington. And this is a way of protecting it by saying, oh no, we put younger guys out there to see what they could do.
I don't think so. I think the 14 points that went in early had shades of, is it Joburg 2018, when Rassie came in with Jacques Ninaba, Spoon Kosi, Akwet Yankee on the wings, England going very quickly. A couple of defensive, I don't think there were defensive system errors. There were personal mistakes that looked like system errors. I think England went like 14, 15 points ahead in that game. Similar things happened today. Similar things also happened in 2019 at the Rugby World Cup against the All Blacks. Severis scores a try with Magazolema Pimpi struggling. To answer your question, I don't think Rassie is protecting the win to say we want to lose the game. But I think it's a look ahead, and I think they were always going to do that. Like I said, I don't think they cared so much about. I'm not saying they went in to lose. I don't think it ever crossed his mind that we've got to give it a go in Eden Park. I think it was always, we're playing against the All Blacks. We always have to pitch up for the All Blacks. But I don't think the Eden Park thing went in as a discussion for them, number one. But I also think he's looking ahead to saying there's a Nations Championship next year, and the autumn. There's the All Blacks 3-test match series. The old guard probably are slowly losing themselves, and you need to let the hoopers hoop. You need to let the kids play. I wish John Dobson.
So you wouldn't have picked Polly to be involved in the matchday squad?
I think you don't learn anything. I absolutely think you don't learn anything by picking Andre Pollard. He missed a penalty. The boys had a bad day at the office, but doesn't make Peter Steph Toy, Sia Kolisi, Eben Etzebeth, and those guys terrible players. I just think They started slow and it showed. But I also think you're not going to learn. You're not going to learn if you're not going to have those kids.
But what are we going to learn from Mani? Mani's not a kid, and Mani's a poor game manager, and Mani plays one way. So what are we learning from him?
Well, Manny's 27, 28, is he? He's
Yeah,
not.
but he's not a kid. But where has Mani ever shown you that he can step up in a Springbok jersey and win in a crucial way and change his game and problem solve?
I
I
I
remember
thought
what happened in the semis against England. I remember what happened against the Australians. And I remember what happened in Argentina last year.
I
Okay?
thought I thought Manny started every game the Springboks had won to the lead up to the Rugby World Cup semi-final. Every game he had started, every game he has started for the Springboks, with the exception of these last two recent ones, the Springboks have won. With the exception
Look,
of the Australia
he,
game,
he can do it on a cold day against Scotland, but it's Scotland. Can he do it in the pressure cooker situation
he's done it
of an England who plays as a Springbok Mark II in a semi-final? Can he keep it
arguably.
together and get his place kicks and his confidence? No, he got the shepherd's crook and he got replaced. And
Arguably,
again, we always have the same argument around Mani, so it's probably getting boring for people out there. But I'm challenging you on the sense of what are we learning from Mani?
I think
Why does he continually get opportunities when I feel like we know the script?
I've always argued, apart from the Scotland game, Mani has never gotten the best forward pack. You know,
Oh,
when he started for the Springboks, but that's a different discussion.
against Ireland, it wasn't a strong pack when they lost in
I
the
think
in the,
I
sem-
think
in the not the semis, the group stages.
I think what the Springboks need to learn is what are they able to do without the big guns, without Eben Etzebeth in the 23, without Andre Pollard in the 23. What are the Springboks willing to do with the new look lineup? What can they do
Yeah,
if it's in the 60th minute and your pack now looks all of a sudden like Wilco Loy and Hendrik Wessels and Marnus van der Merwe, right? With Ruan Nokia and Archie Snyman, with Kwacha Smith, Peter Steph du Toit and Jasper Visa, with the Grant Williams at the scrum of Manny Libok at 10, with maybe Andre Esterhazen in the midfield alongside one of either Kane Moody or Damien Willems, Sacha at 12, Manny at 10, Fussy at the back. Like, they need to find out these discussions. But as you can see, there is some calm heads there. You can finish a game with Grant Williams, who's not a kid anymore. There's experience there. Andre Esterhazen, there's experience there. Will Kolo, he's 21 caps, but he's an old horse. Played in some big games for Harlequins. You still have Sia Kolisi at 95 caps in that lineup. You have Peter Steph du Toit. Jasper Visa is not a kid. Malcolm Marx is not a kid. Oxen Che is not a kid. That backline, that forward pack is strong. The challenge over the
mm,
weekend, the challenge over the weekend was the only things that fired were scrum and kick chase. Those are the only things that fired. The lineout was poor, the breakdown was poor, breakdown attack was poor, defense was poor, handling was poor. So if you do the same thing and expect any change, and it's a sign of insanity. But I think you need to let the kids cook. We always hear this thing about Damien
no,
Williams can play across the back.
and listen, and I'm so glad to see Sasha start. Right, like I think this is great. I think he's going to make mistakes. I don't think he's going to be perfect, but I don't want Sasha to be perfect. I want Sasha to be Sasha. I want him to go there, make plays, take chances, do his best to get those kicks because we're blooding in for 2027, right?
We
And I'm so excited to see him. I mean, I'm intrigued by that midfield. I mean, is this like this isn't the future, is it? I mean, this is a one-off experiment.
I think if you add the Hendrixes, you know, and maybe a Chituka in the wider, if you add those people in the 32, so if you take that 23,
Hmm.
if you add the Hendrixes, if you add a Chituka there, who else? Maybe a Hashim Pede, if he comes through, and Helani, if he comes through in the next couple of years, I think you're slowly starting to see the evolution of that Springbok team. I would have thought maybe you would have put Kane Moody on the wing and then Ethan Hooker in the midfield, but it's probably because he's a midfielder. But I think it's too much of an ask. If you add, I know there's an Edu van der Merwe who's not a spring chicken anymore. There's guys like Henko van Fake. We haven't seen them. There's JC Pretorius, who's more of a Quagga Smith looking type player. We haven't seen in that Springbok squad yet. So that backline doesn't surprise me. Kane Moody has played a 13 against the All Blacks before, in the big Qatar Airways Cup, which the Springboks pumped the All Blacks at Twickenham. Ethan Hooker is no slouch. They will be hungry to prove that, you know what, Vili's time is done. We need to see what Fassi can do now. We've heard about the weekend special. We've heard about the Church of Fassi, Apelele Fassi. We need to see what he can do.
Here's a question to move it from the back line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty evident at the breakdown, the Boks have been beaten pretty consistently in the Rugby Championship.
Well, for the last years, the Boks have struggled with the breakdown.
Sure, I'll accept that. But it's never been as evident as when they're not winning their first phase or dominating at scrum time, right?
Yeah.
And I'm asking, how do they turn that around in the second test? I will always rate Peter Steff. I think he's a wonderful all-rounder, line-out option, high tackle rate. But, he's not – he can slow ball down, but he's not going to win you it. How does Sia start to dominate their Jasper strong ball carrier? It feels like I'm looking at this Lustra and I'm like, I don't think they can get the better of Sevilla and co. I don't think they win that breakdown.
The Springboks have, in the Rassie or Jacques Ninaba era, have never relied on a loose trio to slow ball down. They've always relied with the exception of Quagga Smith, they've always relied, in terms of winning turnovers, you hardly ever think Peter Steff du Toit is hardly regarded for his turnover merchantness, not Sia Kolisi, but Sia Kolisi is very good at cleaning rucks. I'll explain why
Sia's work rate is really high.
Yeah, I'll explain the ruck situation, but to answer your breakdown question,
Malcolm is the one who goes in there and gets you.
Malcolm Marx, Bongi Bonambi, Damien Dilendi. Those are the guys that go in and go for ball in the breakdown. Oxenchair does that quite a bit. I think Franz Malhelbe did that quite a bit when he was around. Those are the guys that go in for the ball. In terms of breakdown, I take back, maybe I'm being accused of being a historian on the Rugby podcast, but I think we have to look at trends and see where it goes. In 2018, Jacques Ninaba came in with a new defensive system and he was asked, well, we've kind of being opened up. The Springboks have been opened up on the wide channels. How do you fix it? And he says it takes 18 tests for a new system to get blooded in and for players to get used to it and for it to become natural. So there's going to be a bit of pain before we get through. But the pain was different in the sense that they were beating teams like England in the home incoming series and still winning, but you could see that there were vulnerabilities on the wide. The Springboks have essentially changed how they want to attack. And you now have forwards being further away from where the ball is because they're trying to play it a little bit wide and sort of like stretch defenses. What that does is it leaves you vulnerable when you have to go in and clean because cleaners are coming from outside. So that split second is less accurate for guys to clean out, and it gives people like Adi Sevilla, Cody Taylor, Samisoni Tukeao a chance, and Scott Barrett to not only, they don't need to steal it, they need to do enough to slow you down that by the time you recycle, their defensive have realigned. But I've always thought the Springboks have struggled slightly with their scrum offs cleaning very quickly and speed pass of ball. They've never had a 9 in the last 3-4 years. I think Faf at some point was that guy who could just pick from the base of the rug and sweep it. All the scrum offs the Springboks like to have a bit of a dart and then get the ball going, which allows defenses to put the scrum off under pressure and the fly off under pressure before the ball goes to them, and hence we end up having to go to the air. They end up having to go to the air quite a bit. So with that being said, how do they fix it? I think they get used to the way they're attacking, number one, and find ways to make sure that they resource those rucks quickly. Or number two, they go back to one-man rugby, carry, clean, kick, chase. And I don't think the latter is the right way to go. The game is evolved.
I just don't see Sacha doing kick chase. You know what I mean? I know he's a bit more...
I don't know if it's a double bluff, but I don't think they want to do kick chase. I don't think they'll pick that back line and then play 2019 final against England or Wales 2019 in Oklahoma, or the All Blacks where they don't score a try and they win 12-13. I think they're playing for France. I think they're playing like they played against France in Paris in the 29. Is it Paris in the 2019 in the 2023 World Cup? They
2023.
wanna have a crack. They're playing Argentina after losing 1 point in Argentina, and they come back and money starts. Is it a null spread?
Yeah, they were brilliant that day. Dominant pack,
They
go
wanna have
forward
a
ball.
crack.
Mani pulled the strings really well.
But
Um,
the old Ajam forwards win you the game. The backs decide by how much. The Springbok
mhm.
forwards in the last couple of test matches have been beaten up. That's it
I
is
mean,
what it is.
are
You
you
put Dan Carter there, he's not going forward with the way they lose rucks and all of that.
before we start to sort of go prediction time and think of how it's going to play out? Have you been? Has Eben's form matched where you thought it has been? Because I know you've made some observations of the Sharks boys, particularly Eben not really looking like he's where he needs to be.
I think he's
And
tired. I don't think it's a skill set thing. I think Eben is tired, but also you must remember that the levels that Eben has reached, I think if you watch the game at the Stoop where they played Claremont in the Challenge Cup semi-final a year and a half, 2 years
yeah, yeah,
before, and I think took that form into the Rugby World Cup. I call it the Ronaldinho sports effect. Maybe I need to write about this in an article somewhere, where Ronaldinho for like 3-4 years with that Messi and Deco, for those football lovers from back in the day, was absolutely unplayable. Then his levels dropped to, maybe he was playing at 120 over 100. Then his levels dropped to 95, where at 95 he was still better than most footballers on the planet. But that was not the Ronaldinho level that people were really used to. So it was like, ooh, that person is washed. I think Eben, with the way he's been playing, he's still top four of the locks around in the world. It's just that he hasn't been playing at those superhuman level. If
mm,
I were in the Springbok camp, I'll do what Johan van Graan did with Thomas Tutoy in February of this year, where he knew that the campaign for Bath is going to get a bit tight with trying to win the Premiership and the Challenge Cup and wanting to compete on three fronts. Gave Thomas Tutoy 5 weeks to go wherever he wanted in the world and did not have any rugby responsibilities, even of eating well and staying in shape. But we know players will stay in shape if you give them that accountability and ownership. And
sure.
it just revived his gas tank. It just revived his emotional tank. I think Eben is giving from an empty well. I think it's been a long season, playing all year round with the URC. They go into Springbok season, and it's just wild up like that, and that's fair. I think if Eben needs to go on a sabbatical to Japan or chill out, and then maybe come back fit and firing in the. I wouldn't play Eben in the autumn. What do you learn? There's nothing to learn. I think you blood in your Ruan Nokias, you hope your Elric Laws and all of those people get fit, but I don't think they will. You find other people, get Jensen Jenkins in there, and just have a crack and build a squad of 45. Also, you must remember they've done a lot of tinkering, so they don't have combinations apart from that tried and trusted combinations that got beaten up last week.
All right, let's bring our lens in. We're looking ahead to the weekend.
Yeah.
Boks in Wellington. You know, going into this, I thought that if they kept the core of that team and refreshed a little bit on the bench and in the starting lineup, I could see the Boks going to Wellington and win. Partly because you influenced my thinking there a few weeks ago, Caleb, when you said if the Boks are going to win one, I think it's Wellington. Now I look at this
Yeah.
team and I'm excited, but I'm also like, I don't know, man. I don't know if he's made too many changes to do it. I'm a little discombobulated. I'm excited, but like with Eden Park, I had a pretty clear logic as to why I thought the
Yeah.
Boks could have won. Whereas here, I'm still like, he did this, he did this. This is great, but what does it actually mean? So take this from whence it comes as somebody who's still, you know, it's funny. I'm going through these different emotions. I'm excited, but I think he should have kept the core. But I'm excited, but I'm not sure if these guys can step up. But I'm excited. But New Zealand are now going in confidently, and I guess I'm gonna say I think the Boks could do it in a really open game. I think free flowing. We'll see some tries and not as cagey, and maybe they can do it by 5 to 7 points.
Yeah, I think that these kids, one of the best thing about youth is there's no scars. I always sort of like sometimes use dating analogies. It's difficult to go back in the pool if your heart has been broken because you're now a little bit more vigilant. So you probably are going to be
Caleb's
deteriorated.
one-liners.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Caleb's always got these one-liners.
it's it's one of those things. But if you're 22 and 21 and you haven't really gotten your heart broken yet, you're keen to get in the game, and that's what I'm expecting from that
Mm,
back line. But that forward pack has some battle scars, albeit it's slightly new in terms of there's new Eben and all the rest of that. I always thought that this rugby championship, the Springboks are going to build for future. I think it's particularly important for the fans to want the Springboks to win. But the Springboks have never been a team that dominates the middle parts between the World Cups. They've always shown up to the big tournaments and done what they need to do in the big tournaments.
yeah.
And even if they
They've
lose by
said
34,
2003 when they were in a complete mess.
yeah.
And in '07, we got done by a referee.
Is it in '07 or 2011?
Sorry, '07, we won. You're right. 2011, we got done by a referee.
The thing with the Springboks, you're right. I don't think the fans understand this. They build during World Cups. I think Rassie understands that. You wouldn't be shocked if it's bolted in his contract to say he probably mentioned it to his bosses to say, look, we're gonna have to evolve now, and that will come with a little bit of pain. And I
Mm,
think he understands that. The fans don't, but that's okay. Do you think if he doesn't let these kids play now, do you think in New Zealand, do you think the 2019 and 2023 brigade will be able to handle a 3-test match series against the All Blacks next year this time? No. You want to know if you always know Andre off the ice can do it. He's a guy that's never needed game time and things. He played a
sure.
Premiership Cup game and won a semi-final. We want to see what Fassi can do now. With no Vili telling him what to do at the back, with no Damian Willems watching him at the back. We want with Cheslin
Sure.
Colby only rounding the back three. We want to see what Sacha can do. So I don't mind. The Springboks always do well when they're underdogs. This game will be, sounds cliche, if the forwards don't show up, they lose. And I still
Mhm.
don't think it sounds weird. I'm sounding like
So,
Proteas. And I lambasted them when they had that sign where they had, you sometimes you don't win, but you learn. I was like, rubbish, it's professional sport. We don't care. We want you to win back in the day. I,
but,
I think they
but
win
here's
anyways, regardless of the score. That's the bottom line.
sorry, say that again, Caleb.
I think they win anyways, regardless of the score, with that back line,
Understood.
regardless of what the result is.
I think without saying anything obvious, don't give the All Blacks a fast start and match them. Take your opportunities, trade blows, go take shots and trade blows, and then we'll see. It's one of these games where I think if you don't run out of time, the teams can keep going back and forth, but you want to be the team that scores last near the end.
Yeah, and these kids have to fire, right? They have to fire
Yeah.
really early because it's going to get disjointed when those subs come in.
Watch the All Blacks win 16-9 now.
And but also, you must remember the surge from the bench. The All Blacks in the last 2 years have had a history of not playing well in the last 20.
Yeah.
There was a thing about them not scoring in the last quarter. So there's also that. It's There's also, if they win, they'll retain the Freedom Cup.
Yes.
Jasper Visa comes back in. Sia Kolisi will play his 96 test, leaving him.
I'll be interested to see how match fit he is.
He's always been fine.
Okay. Look, we're running out of time, but let's throw some love to the Springbok woman, and then we'll have a final word on Argentina, Australia, which was a fantastic game last week. How do you think the woman will do against the All Blacks? They're also playing, sorry, not playing the All Blacks, they're playing the Black Ferns. They obviously got hammered by France in their final pool game,
Yeah.
which was not to be unexpected given
No.
where the Springbok women's rugby is versus French, given the investment we now have versus historically how some of these other countries have prioritized women's rugby. What do you think would be a realistic outcome against the Black Ferns? I don't see us winning, but what could we do to show improvement?
Well, I think the Springboks have already showed improvement, and a lot of male rugby supporters, the brigade out there, wouldn't understand the level of achievement for them getting to the quarterfinals. Italy had 7 or 8 players in that team that they beat that plays in the PWR, which is the strongest women's league in the world. You know, players like Silvia Turani, Agnieszka Bini, Beatrice Rigoni, Sofia Stefan, strong Italian side. There isn't any professional rugby structures in South Africa, with the exception of the Bulls Daisies. A lot of the players have come through the sevens. I think I don't think the score matters here. You want to see how they play.
Mm.
I think you want to see how they play. You want to see the fight of they carry. I don't know if anybody watched New Zealand. I was in Brighton for this Women's Rugby World Cup weekend. Watched England Australia on the Saturday and watched New Zealand versus Ireland. Their catch pass is absolutely sensational.
Mm.
You look at players like Renee Holmes, you look at players like Georgia Miller. They've got a young wing who's 18 who scored a head trick. She absolutely has no fear. When I mean no fear, it's that she has
Mm.
no scars, does not care, does not care what's going on. She isn't bothered. So there is a lot of nuances within this match, and I don't think it matters what the score is. And I know it sounds a bit defeatist when I say that, but the Springbok women have already done well, and
No,
it's time to get behind them after the fact and not let this be one of those World Cup highs and we're okay with it. So realistically, I want to see how they defend. I want to see how they put some phases together. They've scored some lovely first phase tries by typical Swiss, the brain structured attack play. And Nadine Roos was an absolute Trojan this weekend. She played both scrum half and fullback in
mm.
world class level. Good people like Libianse van Reinsberg. Aseza Hele has had a mountain of a World Cup. Babalwa Lacha, probably, if you take away the England props who are at the different level, right? Probably in the shout of top 4 props tight heads in the world. Um, yeah, so they had a red card this weekend as well from in their midfield, I think. So I'm sure that player plays this weekend. But realistically, we want to see how they play. Get behind them. Get behind the Springbok women. They play quarterfinal 1 p.m. United Kingdom time in Sandy Park in Exeter, down in the southwest. So I hope people get in line with those games and they pay attention to that.
Brilliant, brilliant analysis. And Caleb, before we go, and I know we're running out of time, tell me, we obviously saw Argentina and the Wallabies play a really exciting game that the Wallabies won 6 minutes into added on time, injury time. How good is this Argentinian team that they can be leading and playing the rugby? And like, I don't know, I just feel like they never. I mean, look, credit to the Wallabies for coming back and winning, but
Yeah.
this Argentinian team, they get a win next week, they really are in it to win the rugby championship. I mean, they raise their game against the Boks. The Boks come back potentially after a loss in Wellington. And, you know, I just feel like we never talk enough about them.
No, and I think the reason why they struggled, not struggled, but the reason why some of the things didn't go as well as you thought is because they did not have a number 10, right? They had Santiago Carreras, who's
Mm,
played everywhere else, playing there to plug a hole because Thomas Albonos is injured. And I think the difference is the Wallabies are a little bit further away in their journey. They've played 3 tests against the British and Irish Lions. They've had a test against Fiji. They've been in more hard nut games which have not swung their way, and they're fixing those mistakes as they go because they're extremely well coached. I'll be interested to
yes.
see how the Wallabies forward pack and line out evolves when Joe Schmidt leaves, because they've lost Joe Schmidt, though they've lost Jeff Parling, who's now gone to Leicester Tigers. The Argentines, to answer your question, are a phenomenal outfit. And I think it's time people wake up to that fact. Like people like Delgi, the both Carreras brothers, Juan Cruz Malia, Thomas Kramer, but like they're no mugs, and I've always thought that they are no mugs. Like it's you ask me how good they are, they're so good.
Mm.
The only challenge they have is they don't get to play together as much because there's no team in Argentina. Whereas Australia, they get to spend more time together because some people play together at franchise and Super Rugby. Albeit you might argue the quality of that Super Rugby competition, but some players play together. Like Harry Wilson knew that he's Angus Bell and those guys are okay to go for it. And you're starting to see that come to fruition. You saw Joseph Akuso Suali'i with his 2 tries. He's slowly starting to show why he's the world class signing that he is. And I thought James O'Connor was phenomenal. I thought James O'Connor, albeit he's not going to be around for the Bledisloe, from what I understand. Um, so that's going to be big for them. But I don't think that's going to be big for the Rugby Championship. But I think that's going to be good for them long term going. Having to play without Bull Skelton, James O'Connor, and see what the Wallabies have in the tank. I think if Argentina
Hmm.
more organization. They have Felipe Contepomi, who's a brilliant coach, who's played at the highest level. But I just think they just don't have that professional structure, and it shows in some cases. But their overall genuine talent shows. I think they'll pick off a lot of teams come the summer, in the autumn. Um, I think they're excellent, and they're just going to be putting more experience in the legs, more players playing in different countries. I don't know if the Julian Montoya moving to France thing helps them, but Argentina are good. They are a good side. They score a side that scores first phrase tries against
Hmm.
tier one nations is a good side. Like there's that is that the Delgi try that in out back on the outside cut back inside try goes like they're a good side.
No, it's hard to disagree with that analysis, Caleb. So we look forward to seeing what will happen this weekend with them and the Boks. I'm predicting an Argentina win. If I was to ask you in 30 seconds, would you agree?
Yeah, I think both Wallabies and Argentina don't have within them to win 2 games in a row, and I think they're going to go back and forth. It's weirdly that one of the Wallabies' best players has been the not so retired Nick White. So I think Argentina nick it with Australia not having James O'Connor and Tom Liner coming back now. I think it'll be a challenge. I think Argentina will have in for a shout. I think the Springboks lose. I think they lose by 4. I think the young guns will be sparky and on fire, but they won't have enough of the battle hardness in the hard matches to try and pull through. I think they're going to have a crack. It's going to be exciting. We're going to have a look into the future, but I'll be surprised if they win it. I think they leave the New Zealand shows now with no wins. Um, and I don't think that's particularly bad, anyways. I think it's a horrible feeling for Springbok supporters, but I think they need to have one eye in the future and see what's coming. So I think the Springbok lose. I think Argentina win.
Caleb, thank you for those predictions. And before we go, sorry,
Yeah,
Caleb, go on.
I
One
was
more parting shot before I hit the mailbag.
before you go, I was gonna say the parties in Exeter and Bristol. It's in the southwest, so the women's rugby has reached quarter-final stage, fever stage, I'd call it. You've got you've got matches that you could probably predict. New Zealand play South Africa, 1 o'clock UK time at Sandy Park in quarterfinal 1. Quarterfinal 2 at 4 o'clock. We'll see Canada and Australia meet. It's a very good Canadian side, second in the world, have a chance at lifting this whole thing. So if you want to watch some good women's rugby, watch Canada play. Watch Sophie de Goody. Watch Alex Tessier. Watch watch those players do their thing. You've got France Island in quarterfinal 3 again at Sandy Park in Exeter. So that's 1 o'clock on the 14th. That's Sunday UK time. And then you've got quarterfinal 4. It's a Six Nations clash. It's the good old Calcutta rivals, England versus Scotland, 4 o'clock in Bristol. And it's all live on BBC Two and BBC One. Every game is on BBC Two, with the exception of that England game that's on BBC One. So there's no excuse for anybody in the UK. It's free to air. And if you're back home, I think in South Africa, Supersport is showing it. So people must have a look. And predictions for that, I think New Zealand win quarterfinal 1, Canada win quarterfinal 2, France win quarterfinal 3, and England win quarterfinal 4. So you're going to have a Canada New Zealand semi final and an England France semi final next weekend in Bristol. So let's see how I've done on those predictions, but I think I've got them a little bit spot on.
Absolutely. We can't wait to see that. And before we go, Caleb, We're just going to hit the mailbag
Yeah.
to get some comments that came in on our last show. Always good. Always love to hear from everyone out there. Remember, we sell ourselves as Africa's biggest prize, so we love to hear from you. So on our Peter Muller preview pod, we had Pineapple tell me on TikTok, bro, I think the All Blacks are in the same position the Boks were in a few years ago, when the Boks were struggling to find their new combinations and flow. Look at the Boks now. Amazing team spirit, and they synchronize so well. I still have hope for the mighty All Blacks. Saturday is going to be interesting. And Pineapple, it certainly was. Pineapple Express, after the movie, I guess. I hope you enjoyed it. I really do. And Jim Daka said to me after the game, and then you don't know Scott. And Jim, I certainly don't. If you want to know more about him, you can listen to a past pod where Caleb explains why the All Blacks are poorly coached by Razor. So you can go and listen to that. And then you can listen to the podcast after that where Caleb digs himself out of a hole or digs himself more into a hole. Depends on that. Caleb, always fun chopping it up with you. Wish you well and can't wait to see you next week when we'll talk a little bit more Springbok rugby.
Brilliant.